Hi, everyone. This is David Smith. We're with No Kill in Motion. I'm here today with Shirley Marsh from Biscuit, Aubrie Kavanaugh from No Kill Huntsville, Alan Rosenberg from the New Jersey Animal Observer. We're going to talk today about a shelter in Memphis. I think it's MAC, if I got that right. And
MAS.
Shirley, it is. All right. Shirley, actually, that's how I was exposed to you over a decade ago. In your blog, you did some amazing investigative journalism actually on Memphis. They even tried to sue you at one point, as I understand. And you recently put a post out there that was fascinating. They're trying to say that they don't have to release any records, particularly medical records on animals, because of what they didn't use the word, but they're actually kind of putting it as a HIPAA compliance, as we have with people, which I've never ever heard of that. So give us a little background, Shirley, on Memphis and what they're doing today.
The Memphis shelter has a very long and very troubled history, especially with dogs, but with cats as well. Dogs have been left to suffer in their cages with no medical treatment until they are taken to the kill room. They've been starved to death. There have been dogs lifted and dragged on choke poles, live dogs buried under bags of dead animals on their way to the incinerator. Workers have been criminally charged in the past, and some have gone to jail. So there's been a long history there, and that, of course, makes animal advocates wary. Regardless of how many times the administration changes, people are wary. And when they request animal records to find out what's going on, they are specifically wanting to know, are these animals being medically treated? Are they being fed? Are they being cared for? And to deny the medical records on the basis of what they're calling privacy, it does make people very suspicious.
So they actually rejected somebody's request for medical records recently. Is that what happened?
Yes, they went to the attorneys and said, we really want to find a way to reject these record requests because we don't like filling them. And is there anything that you can come up with? And what they came up with was that the medical privacy records laws don't specify human medical records as opposed to animal medical records. They don't make any differentiation. So because it's not specifically differentiated in the law, the attorneys came back and said, we think you can withhold the requested records on the basis of animal medical record privacy.
You made a great analogy, I think, in the blog of like, okay, so does that pertain to, I forget the examples you used, but then
murder.
Like, what was it?
Murder.
Right.
Death penalty. Right. Well, why do we have animal cruelty laws if we really have other other laws like battery and murder and rape and
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Aubrie, I know you deal with HIPAA compliance in what you actually do, so I want to hear what you have to say.
We deal with HIPAA every day of the week, and HIPAA, a lot of people are not clear on what the acronym is. They think it's health information. It's actually Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. So, and I'm going to be flippant for just a moment. I'm not aware of any dog or cat that holds their own insurance policy. So the law was written to protect the health records of people. It's a complete farce to claim that because the act doesn't reference animals or doesn't reference humans, that, well, gosh, maybe it applies to both. No, it's about people, health insurance. That's what it has to do with. It has to do with people. This is the first time that I've heard somebody make an argument that because a law doesn't say human, well, it might apply to other species. And we could get off on a tangent about animals as property, but I think it's just ludicrous. Now, having said that, because HIPAA, it's about people. It doesn't cover animals. I pulled it up this morning. You don't find the word animal, dog, cat, veterinary. It's not in there anywhere. So there are some states that have taken some steps to help protect veterinary records, but that is veterinary records for owned animals. So, and I looked actually about Tennessee, about confidentiality of their records. And this is what is confidential under Tennessee law. Health certificates issued by the state veterinarian are confidential and not open to public inspection. And it says a veterinarian may not violate the confidential relationship between the veterinarian and the client, except upon written or oral permission from the client, receipt of a court order, blah, blah, blah. So, but that has to do with owned animals. So that means if I live in Tennessee or I live in Memphis, a veterinarian can't just disclose the records about my dog without a court order or whatever. But we're talking about Memphis Animal Services. We're talking about animals that are in an animal shelter. So I think it's honestly completely disingenuous that they've taken this position. I will say, however, that my own experience in Huntsville, we did some records requests early on, and we were told that the records were not a matter of public record. So we had to push back. And specifically, we were seeking kennel cards because we wanted to know why certain dogs had been destroyed. And the pushback was, oh, those aren't matter of public record. So we had to go back to the city attorney and say, au contraire, yes, they are. We had to cite the language from the state statute, and ultimately they did give us the records. Now it was months later, by which time the information really was of limited value to us. But I feel like Memphis is doing this just to see if somebody's going to push back. And I hope that somebody does, because I think it's a legal argument, not an attorney, paralegal, can't give legal advice. I just think it's a disingenuous argument.
Well, and the shelter, unless if something's different, but almost everywhere I know, the shelter is the owner of the animal, so therefore they can release the records if they want to. So the protection they're really looking at is for themselves, not for the animal. And as a government agency, tax funded, I don't understand how you could actually protect a record like that. I understand you can do it for a person, but not for
Wasn't part of the issue too, Shirley, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, that they wouldn't comply with the records request, but at the same time, they were sharing all that information with other people, like in rescue groups. So they were cherry picking with whom they would share the information.
right.
That's right.
All right, last word, Alan. What do you see?
Yeah, someone has done public records requests in many states. This is the most absurd denial I've ever seen, and I really do hope. I think it was a Freedom of Information group in Tennessee that was trying to get these records. I really hope they sue them. In New Jersey, I have successfully sued governmental entities, and they had to pay my attorney's fees. And that's kind of a major discouragement under our law. But I think really when you look at this, it really is clearly an attempt by the shelter director, I guess what's her name, Alexis Pugh, to not be transparent. Interestingly, Alexis Pugh is now leading a group for American Pets Alive to help shelters fight advocacy efforts. They're claiming, it's also a lot to do with people making threats, but it's also about helping shelters fight crises. And I find it very interesting that she is the one that apparently, at least from what I'm reading the articles in Shirley's blog, was the one who initiated this attempt to block the disclosure of records. And I think that's a really clear indication of where she's coming from. And if American Pets Alive is going to use her as the leader of this group to effectively fight advocacy efforts, I'm really concerned about it. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on what they come up with. They just started this, but it is something that is absurd. And I really hope the city of Memphis gets sued and has to pay money to discourage them from doing this kind of thing in the future.
Okay, well, last word, because Shirley, you actually probably have the greatest pulse on here. Do you see where it's going yet? Or, I mean, is there any indication of what's happening out there?
Not that I know of, but it was, as you mentioned, Alan, a group that's dedicated to open government who initially reported on this story as far as me being aware of it. So it's possible that they may pursue it, but somebody does need to, because it is, it's so ridiculous. And it just, I always say shelters that are doing good will want to show their records, because they are providing good community service, and they want to show that. And if you are actively looking for ways to hide your records, that of course is going to make people suspicious.
All right. Well, thank you for that blog, Shirley. We look forward to seeing what's happening in Memphis. I mean, it's been a troubled place for a long time, and hopefully this this brings them to another place. Hopefully this place got to improve sooner or later, right? Well, thank you for joining us today. This has been No Kill in Motion, here with Shirley Marsh from Yes Biscuit, Aubrie Kavanaugh from No Kill Huntsville, Alan Rosenberg from New Jersey Animal Observer. I'm Davyd Smith from No Kill Colorado. We will see you next time. Thanks for joining us.